Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. All right. I think, oh, no, we're still at 0 watching. So hold on. We're waiting for connection here. Here we go. All right. We are connected. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. This is Steph Lee, the founder of Host Agency Reviews. I am so excited that you are here with me today. And for those of you that are Friday 15 diehards, you know, last week I was talking about how you'd finally get to meet Dave Myhoffer from TPI, and you're like, Dave sure looks an awful lot like Nikki Miller, if you're watching. And that is true. Dave, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties and then we weren't able to meet up. So Travel Planners International is our sponsor for today, but I am lucky enough to have Nikki Miller on with Travel with Nikki as my co-host. Hello, Nikki.
Hello.
If you have never met Nikki, she's wonderful. She's great. She's also, two things you should know about her. First is that she's a city council person for her city in Michigan, which is very exciting. Won her election last year. And second, I'm going to share my screen. She is about to become a oops. No, this is, hold on. I don't want me big. We want Winston big. She is about to become a puppy mom next week for this adorable little Dachshund Winston, which is super exciting. She hasn't had a puppy. What did you say, since third grade or something?
Yeah, third grade since the puppy stage, so it's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, so super, super exciting, but very excited to have, she emailed me over some pictures of Winston and I was super excited. So let's see what we've got on the agenda for today. So first of all, if you have questions for the Friday 15, you know the rules. Every 12 p.m. Central Time, we answer industry questions, but you can submit them by going to Friday 15. No, hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15. Submit your questions there or watch other episodes. And then I'm just going to read a quick ad for Travel Planners International, since Dave wasn't able to join us. So embark on your journey to success with Travel Planners International, your trusted ally in the travel industry. With over 3 decades of expertise, we're more than just a partner, we are family. Our tailored training programs, state-of-the-art technology, and unwavering support empower you to thrive in the ever-evolving world of travel. Join our vibrant community of passionate professionals and unlock endless opportunities for growth, fulfillment, and prosperity. Your dream career in travel starts with Travel Planners International. Explore our HAR profile now and take the first steps towards your extraordinary future. So thanks again for TPI for that. And before we get into our questions, there's a couple, as usual, a couple announcements from the HAR side of things. So first is, I've been warning you for weeks that our survey ended last week. And guess what, everybody? It got extended for another week. So for all of the procrastinators out there, I am enabling you because you have another week. It actually, I think it closes tomorrow on Saturday. So you can't procrastinate for much longer, but please go and take our survey. You can go to hostagencyreviews.com/survey or follow the link in the comments. It's going to take you about anywhere from 3 minutes to, I'd say, 8 minutes to fill it out. And you get that free, delicious report of about 80 pages of data that you can use to grow and benchmark your agency. Two other things is we just sent out our webinar roundup email, but in case you missed it, we have 2 webinars coming up. Next Wednesday, we have one with G Adventures, and Nikki, this is going to be with Jeremy, I think. So Nikki and I were at a conference together in Puerto Vallarta with Jeremy and just had a blast. So it's called G is for Groups. So if you're specializing in groups, you'll probably want to tune in, especially if G Adventures is a supplier you're going to want to be booking. It is Wednesday, June 12th at 11 Eastern, 10 Central, and you can register by following the link in the comments or the show notes. And then the following Wednesday, we have Travel Edge is going to be doing a webinar, and they are going to do it on growing your business beyond family and friends, which if that's something you're struggling with, or even just struggling to find clients, tune in for that. It's Wednesday, June 19th, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central Time, and we'll pop the links in the comments for you. All right, enough of that business. Nikki, are you ready for the questions?
I'm ready, Steph. Let's do it.
All right, perfect. So, first one is from Anonymous. Hi, I'm just starting out and plan to use the summer to find clients. What are some of the most effective ways you've seen new advisors find clients? I work a full time job and have kids that are involved in school activities, choir, softball, and track. So, Nikki, what are your thoughts on this for advice for this anonymous person?
Yeah, so some of my first thoughts are between your work and all the kid activities, that's a great place to start. If you're just
Yep.
starting out, you always start with those that you know and then build your circle out. The only hesitation I'd have with that is if your fellow employees and if the school activities, if those don't align with what your target audience is, what your target traveler is, then I'd offer some other advice. But start with who you know, because people are going to buy from you as a travel advisor if they know you, if they like you, and if they trust you. And there's no better way than already working with those that you have a relationship with. It's going to be way easier than cold calling.
Yep.
So starting with that like central group, and then if they're not your exact market person, ask who their friends are. Ask them to talk, to talk about you for you.
Hmm. That's perfect. So some of the things that like I think about, because I thought the same thing when I read this, Nikki, was wow, there's a great group of people to grow through to like, sell to with your kids in sports and then with your job. And a couple things to use for our travel agent chatter podcast is if you haven't listened to it, it's in-depth interviews. I do about 2 hours of interview with the person before we do the hour recording. And it's in-depth interviews. What I'm looking for is kind of the story on what they're doing differently that makes them so successful. And then I distill it down into like 45 minutes or an hour. So there's a couple in there that I think might be helpful for you, Anonymous. So one is we'll drop the link to the Travel Agent Chatter landing page. But one is Dewan Shorter. So he was working his part-time job in media while he started his agency, like many people. But his is like kind of the story of how he got built his business off of his coworkers because one of the things was his employer had a sabbatical program. So he became known as the guy that books the sabbaticals for all of his coworkers. And then word spread. And then he started going to other companies that had sabbaticals and booking the sabbaticals for their employees. So that's one to listen to if you're interested in. Another one, two actually would be Andre Zuleta and Courtney Nichols. They both use organic blogging and SEO to find clients. So this isn't going to fit you necessarily, Anonymous, unless you want to go another route. But that organic blogging, Andres really, really knows Japan, and his is boutique Japan. And then Courtney does destination weddings. So if you have a very specific niche, blogging can be amazing. That's what we do at HAR here. And then another one, Jennifer Donchez, who she started out selling Disney, and I'm not sure the age of your kids, but she started out selling Disney and then eventually evolved as the families grew older. Now she does a lot of destination weddings and other things, but that's another story on how to kind of break into the school communities. And the last one is Amy Garner, who she does accessible travel and then travel for families with neurodiverse kids, which I think would be a great, great avenue for you because in schools, there's so many kids that are on, have neurodiverse and to be able to be a specialist in that area. And Amy gives a ton of great resources to help you learn about traveling with children and families and how to prepare for something that could be really, really stressful. So we'll pop the links to all those in there, but those are some things. I hope that works. Did you have anything else to add to it, Nikki?
Well, one thing that I would challenge Anonymous to do is whatever method you decide to go with, write it down. You're way more
Oh,
likely to follow through with the plan if you write it down. So if it's, I'm going to talk to 2 families this week. And great thing about travel is it's not life insurance or car insurance where you have to sell it. You just have to talk about it. So, I'm going to chat with 2 families at choir practice about travel, whether it just be where are you going, where have you been, what was your best trip, what was your worst trip. just to get that conversation going. So they start, when they think of travel, they think of you, but you've written it down. And so that
Mhm.
way you've got something to hold yourself to.
That accountability is huge. That's an amazing tip. Let me see. There was something else that popped into my head, anonymous, but then it just left again. So maybe it'll come back in. I don't know if it does. I'll come back to it. But let's move into, oh, I know what it was. Okay, so Mary has this great article on how to write press releases. So this is an easy way for anybody. It has some press release templates in there. If you send a press release to CNN or the New York Times, you're not going to get that published about your agency opening. But there are so many like neighborhood newspapers, small town newspapers, local newspapers that are interested in stories like yours and getting started. So pitch those out there. Or if you're seeing, I'm trying to think if there's anything. Um, newsworthy. And I haven't been watching the news, so I don't have any examples for you at the moment. But if there's something happening in travel, write a press release and send it to the local TV stations or to the newspapers. They might pick it up as an article and quote you as the person, the expert. And so that adds validity to you. It also hopefully gets your name out there and hopefully gets you some clients. So that's a great way to do things as well. All right. Next question, Megan W. What are the pros and cons to leads programs? I feel like signing with a host agency that offers a lead program would be beneficial, especially when just starting out. Finding clients is intimidating to me. Anyone else feel this? I love that. I'm going to go out on a limb, but I'm going to say you're not alone in this.
No, definitely not alone. Starting out, the hardest thing to do is we're all ready to start selling, to booking trips and everything, but we don't have any requests coming in. So getting those is of the most daunting and intimidating part.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've got a few questions for you to ask yourself, Megan, before we go into pros and cons. Such as like, why do you need a lead program? Is it because you don't have any other way to get inquiries coming in, or have you tried things and they haven't worked? Is there anything you can do like to get more leads on your own? Because lead programs, and I'm sure there's some data out there on HAR, but it's normally a different commission cut. When I was with a host agency once, I mean, I think my commission off a lead was maybe 40%. So, you know, it was kind of that drastic cut. So is that cut in commission going to be worth it or not to you? So those are the first questions I have for you to ask yourself.
Yeah, like because there's kind of two things, like what's driving this, and is that the root cause? Is Are leads going to solve this? But let me, I'm going to share my screen really quick because I want to go on the host agency list. We do have information because there's a couple logistical things that you'll want to think about, Megan. And let's see, Nikki touched on one, which is the commission split different than if you were to bring in your own leads? And see here under program details, we have the lead program, and it will have a red mark if there are no leads, and it'll have a check mark if there are leads. And then if there are leads, there's a couple questions you want to be checking in. And these answers again are on the profile. Let me make sure. Okay, good. It's big. So the first thing you want to check is, who does that lead belong to? Does it belong to you, the advisor, after you make the booking, or does it belong to the host agency? And while that's important, or why that's important, is that you need to know, like, for the future of your agency, what exactly you're building. Because if you ever leave that host agency, even if you can never imagine it, if you've built your whole business off the leads, then you need to know that if you decide to move host agencies or go off on your own, those, you really have to have integrity about it. But those leads belong to the host agency, and that's something you've engaged in and you've agreed upon. So just knowing what you're getting into. And then the other thing is, um, are they charging for the leads, or are the leads free? And again, kind of coming into that is the commission split. Is the commission split different? So those are some of the logistical things I would make sure that you're asking your host agency um, about the leads program. And then is there anything else that, like for pros and cons, what are, did you ever use a leads program? It sounded like you used one at your old host agency.
So I used it for just a little bit. At my very first host agency. And I realized right away it wasn't for me because I would build these relationships with my travelers and then, you know, it would just always be the lead. It'd always be at the lead percentage cut. And then I was like getting to know them like family. And I knew that when I was getting ready to leave, I wasn't going to be able to take them with me. So they weren't ever mine. So there was that going on. And, it wasn't the best lead program that's out there. And there's tons of different lead programs out there. So you might find one that works well for you. But the one that I had just didn't work well for me. And it was a lot of tire kickers. They weren't well qualified leads, which when I was first starting out, was kind of nice because then at least I was getting some sort of experience. It wasn't, turning into bookings, but I was learning the different booking engines and working with different suppliers and figuring out how to position different itineraries and everything to a client, and figuring out a lot of the questions that I needed to ask my client in order to qualify them. So,
yep. And so I'm going to share my screen again because we have a great article about leads programs that kind of talks about, so up on the top in the search bar. Oh, and of course this isn't working today. Hold on. If you type leads in the bar up on the top, the search bar, or you can follow the link in the comments, it will take you to this article. But we talk about travel agent leads and kind of the pros and cons of it, the expectations behind it, because the close ratios are going to be very, very different between programs. And it's also going to be different between advisors, because the advisor does play a role in whether or not they're closing, but also the quality of leads. If you're getting really crappy leads, the close ratios are obviously going to be much lower. But one thing that's really nice about this travel leads article is it talks about everything. So the different types of leads. There can be one, Virtuoso has one. I think Signature has one. Travel Leaders has one. All the consortia, or a lot of the consortia, I should say, have leads where it's like a directory, and it'll have the advisor's name, what their specialties are, and then the consortia work on getting consumers to that, and then they farm out the leads to the advisors. So that's kind of one style of need. Another one is there's a company called Zicasso, which specializes, they've been around for probably 20 years. And they've been very successful in their leads program, which is incredibly hard to do. But they specialize in luxury travel. So that's a different type of lead where it's not a consortia, and then they give it to the advisor. And I believe their business model is they take a commission cut on that. Do you happen to know, Nikki, for sure on that or no?
Picasso, I'm not familiar with their program.
Okay. And so let's see, we talk about that. Mary did a little research and asked some of the host agencies, and she had the average close ratios anywhere from 10 to 95%, which is not helpful at all. But let's see. She has some information here on the host agencies that filled out the information. And then she talks about like just some different alternative travel agent lead programs that you can take a look at. So I would say, the big pros and cons for the lead program are really going to be kind of the logistical things. Like, is it going to be worth it for you? Like, what's your long-term vision for your agency? And is this going to kind of meet the needs there? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with travel leads, just going in educated on things, Megan.
You hit that step, knowing what you're getting into. Just educate yourself on it so that you don't wind up spending 5 years working with a lead and then deciding your business model's changed and then you can't work with that family again, because that's hard.
Yeah. And like another question you can ask with travel leads programs, sometimes when they belong to the host agency, they might have something, or they might be open to a conversation about if you say, all right, if I have this lead, it belongs to you, but can I buy this lead from you? If so, what would be the cost to it? And that could be something. I was just talking to an advisor the other day that the agencies she was with, you could buy the lead, and it was the average of 2 years of what they would have made in commission from that advisor, like looking at their history. You could buy that, but it would cost you 2 years worth of commission to buy that client. All right, last question. I have a client who has changed her mind and completely changed her destination like 6 times in 3 days. Each change has costed me hours of work. Do you have any advice? Michael C. I feel like this is so common.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to be a little bit blunt. I'm definitely on the concierge service side of the industry. So, are you charging a fee? Has this person paid for your services, or are they treating you like an online booking engine and they're just saying, I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see this. So, what have you been doing like to qualify that agent or that traveler? And have you only been working by email? Because it sounds like it's time for a phone call.
Yeah. No, those are great suggestions because the first thing I heard or thought of when I was reading this was, oh yeah, I think like every new advisor, almost every new advisor goes through this. Um, but it's so you may be feeling kind of like frustrated and a failure, but I think these are important things to experience so that you feel really confident on why you're charging a fee, or it helps you refine your qualifying process on the questions you're asking the client so that they're not changing their mind later on. And there's a couple resources I think that's going to be helpful for you, Michael. One is our article on the travel agent's guide to charging fees. We push this one up there a lot, but it's really great because it has the verbiage that over 100 advisors use on charging fees and what they tell their clients. One other thing is these travel advisor reports that we publish every year. It has great data on the fees that travel agents charge because there's a couple, I think, um, points of friction when someone's deciding to charge a fee. The first one is, should I charge a fee and do I have the confidence to charge the fee? And then the second one is once you decide, it's like, okay, well, how much am I going to charge? And that's really difficult if you don't have data. Like you can, cruise other people's websites and figure out what they're charging, but that's a lot of work. So if you take the survey, you get the free reports, and there's a whole section on fees on what's the most common type of fee. So there's a couple you can think about charging, Michael. One, I think the most common one is like a per person fee that they charge, either that or per day. And then you can think about one of the things that for people, the vast majority of people do is they do something like I'm trying to think of the term right now, like it's not pay as you go, but essentially you put the payment down for the fee.
You're talking plan to go.
Thank you. Not pay
Yeah.
as you go. You can tell it's Friday for me. Plan to go fee. So put the money down and then it goes towards the booking if they book with you. And so that's all great information. We will link to our article on charging fees as well as the travel advisor reports. And then we have an article on qualifying clients and questions to ask. And that's another great one. Any other advice, like specific advice on that, Nikki?
Yeah. So, Michael, I wish I had just a little more information, but really knowing, trying to get in the client's mind of why is she changing? Is she changing because she doesn't like the destination? Is it because she doesn't like the pricing? Or is she just shopping? Like, is she window shopping? And she wants to know, how much Greece would be, how much Italy would be, so she can, kind of put together and figure out what she wants to do. So that's kind of my advice, is more questions to ask her, so you can get more information out of her. And even just being blunt and putting it nicely, like, oh, I've gone through 6 different changes for you. What are you looking for? What am I not getting? Because if you put it back on you and say, what am I not getting? What am I not understanding? It's way less assertive and confrontational. So, then she's more likely to answer you truthfully.
Yeah, and I think I liked your idea of, saying something about getting on the phone and saying, I think I'm like missing something here and I want to make sure that I'm understanding exactly what you're looking for. Do you mind if we jump on a call? Here's a link to my calendar, or send me over some times that work for you. Works like a charm, Michael. We're making it seem so easy, I know.
Yeah.
um, the the last thing I'll share is I recently did a travel agent chatter article with a new advisor that was kind of she mentioned this as one of her issues. And then she had a really in-depth fee page that she put on her website when she decided to start charging fees. And that's kind of a great example. She outlines things, she's like, this includes 4 revisions to the original quote, and things like that. So hopefully that helps you out, Michael. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. And let's see, upcoming for our next Friday 15th. June 14th, we have Uniglobe Travel Center. April Swales is going to be joining us. June 21st is Lavarte Travel. Lori Spears will be on. We haven't seen her in a while. And then June 28th, Outside Agents will be on with Chad Burt. So we've got an action-packed, I know summer, it's hard to compete with, but we've got some really fun people coming up. So again, if you have questions for us, we would love to answer them for you. You can go to hostagencyreviews.com/Friday15 to submit your questions. Nikki, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us when you're preparing for a new family member.
Anytime, Steph. I love being able to help you and the Heart crew out. You guys do such great work. You're such a wonderful resource. I wish you were in the industry when I first started, but I'm so glad that you're here now. So anything I can do to support is great. And everybody have a fantastic Friday.
Yes, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend here. It is beautiful here in Minnesota, and I'm really looking forward to cutting out early from work. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next Friday, 12 p.m. Central.